Monsieur Anber.
Monsieur Cassavant. Greetings, my friend.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for tuning in to another edition of the Calling Russ Anber podcast. And I believe we're going to be surprising some with our guest this evening. And I think it's going to be very exciting for a lot of the boxing fans who tune in, and also some people who may not be following some of the history of the sport as much as we have. But many have been watching something on Netflix that I think has been very cool and one of the trending documentaries right now. So, Mr. Anber, without further ado, you want to introduce our guest this evening?
I'd love to introduce our guest, and we can let her talk about it. But I'd have to say, the first woman of professional boxing and real solid, and I don't know if this is to me the ultimate compliment, one who fought like a man, Christy Martin.
Thank you guys for having me with you tonight.
Thank you so much. And obviously the documentary on Netflix is, if you look up your name, you'll find it, but the actual name of it is Untold, Deal with the Devil. We can get to it in many different aspects, but Russ, you brought about the fact, the first female fighting. Like, what's your first memory of having, because you were obviously involved in boxing at the time, of Christy Martin and her career?
Well, it was just like this rise from the, didn't hear much about it. And it was like a new thing. Oh, women boxing, and then, okay, another woman, I don't know if you remember, there was a girl here, and I knew this was going to happen. Her name escapes me. She was the first Canadian woman to actually get carded to fight an amateur bout. And it was in Nova Scotia. She became registered and paved the way for amateur boxing in Canada. And I always felt that she should be remembered or honored in a certain way. She was a lawyer. She made sure that everything was legally done, and she became a fighter. And then Christy was emerging at that time as a solid pro and starting to make her name. Now, obviously, this is once she reached a certain fame. It took a while before I had heard about her. And then when I did, well, we saw her. And when you saw the way she fought, this set the stage for everybody wanting to have women on their card. But it always seems that they fell short because they were looking for that same excitement that Christy brought, and they didn't always get it. Lucia Riker was around, but I'll turn it over to Christy now and let her finish that from there.
You know what? I think more than anything, I was in the right place at the right time and ready to take advantage of the opportunity given to me. Don King was my promoter, was fighting under Mike Tyson on Showtime pay-per-view from Las Vegas. All the stars were lined up. All I had to do was go out there and perform. I had a tough as hell opponent, Dirty Gogarty, and we put on a show. I don't think at the time, and really up until probably just maybe like the last year, did I really realize what the two of us mean to women's boxing. So sometimes I'm a little offended by the women that are out there today. You got to give us a little credit, because you know what? We gave credit to the ones before us that made it possible for us to go do what we did. But then we really turned the tide. And so for these women that are out there today to think it's all about them and that they don't need to pay a little respect to us, it's offensive.
Christy, that happened. But I feel that sometimes boxing is one of the worst sports for remembering its past and those who paved the way for what we have now.
Oh, but you know what? With the guys, I would like to think that they're more in tune and in touch with the ones that came before them, that they understand the Basilios, the Gene Fulmers, those guys that came. And I could go on and on, but those guys, the Robinson, all those guys, LaMotta, the warriors that came before, they give homage to, right? But women, they just all of a sudden think they're the one. Well, I didn't think I was the one. I even said back in the day that I don't want to be the pioneer. I just want to be a fighter. I just wanted people to accept me as a fighter. And, but now I do realize that fight on the Tyson undercard with Gogarty really, really did shake the world up a little bit.
And there haven't been a bunch of fights to rival that fight and how good it was. And I wonder if sometimes, do you sit around like some of us guys, when we sit around and say, the fighters back then,
Look, all the time, because look, in my opinion, the women that are out there today, better thank God they were not born in the to fight in the 90s, because we were a bad group of women. I mean, we not only were good fighters, but we were fighting because we needed to make a statement, you know? So we were like the ones that really got it. We need to change the way that people view women fighters. So I think we were better fighters. We were better mentally. You know, we were a little tougher mentally than the fighters of today. But I think that on the male side and the female side.
I was just going to ask you, both ways, right?
I think the last group of really great to the heart male fighters were the 90s. But I mean, even the 90s didn't probably compare to the 70s. And, you know, those guys, you know, they were a whole different breed. They were a different breed.
It's refreshing to see somebody understand, you know, what it was. And that's why I say how important I feel as a traditionalist in boxing to remember those guys who paved the way, whether we go back to the 40s and 50s and 60s and when it started to really become, you know, and how it evolved to what it is now. I respect what came, and it's refreshing to hear you remember the past.
You know, I felt that it was very important. Like in the 90s, when I started to get a little more attention, I was always so afraid that a reporter was going to say, yeah, and Christy, what weight was Gene Tunney? You know, and what about Sugar Ray Robinson? And so I read a lot. I watched a lot of fight films, Willie Pep, Bojack, Henry Armstrong is who I think is like the world's number one. To me, he's number one. He doesn't get the credit. To me, you know, he doesn't get the credit because he didn't have the flamboyance of Muhammad Ali. But to, you know, I love boxing. I can go back and talk to you about it and watching those old time guys. I mean, they just stood there and fought most of the time. They just, let's draw a line in the sand and let's fight.
In fairness, Russ, if you just let me for a second here, because we're talking about the history of boxing. It's also, I think, in many sports. I remember covering the Canadians, and a lot of the Montreal Canadiens in hockey. Some of the current players didn't even know the legends that were coming in, and their names were the rafters. I think it's part of society. It seems like we forget with technology and all the social media stuff to kind of look at the past. I don't think it's just boxing, but clearly boxing is part of the problem.
And that's not even a good excuse, because if you think about it, when could we have ever just, I had to buy VHS tapes to watch these old time greats. I had to buy VHS tapes to watch the legends. Now all you have to do is push the button on YouTube and you can see any fight you want. So yeah, not even a good excuse. If you're going to be a fighter, you have to know about why you're able to be a fighter.
Yeah, I think, Matt, to your point, it's more people are so self-absorbed in what they're doing now. It's not that the information's not out there. They're just so self-absorbed in their own logo and their own Facebook page and how many followers they have. They don't care about the past.
We have a lot of bag beaters.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. As the first woman of boxing and the one who was really on the stage and I wasn't meaning to be insulting. It was the ultimate compliment of saying you fought like a man, you know. How difficult was it for you during that time to gain the acceptance? I know you spoke a little bit about it in the documentary with you're in the gym, but when you started appearing on these stages, showing up at the weigh-ins, being there, doing the press conference, posing, what'd you come up against?
Well, you know, the strange thing is about it, it wasn't so much the other fighters, like the male fighters. They were kind of cool with it, but it was the managers and the coaches. They're so pissed because they felt like I was taking their guy's spot. And so here, you know, Don King's putting a female fighter on the pay-per-view show, and my male fighter deserves that slot. And so the more like pushback was from managers and coaches. Fighters were pretty good, like Terry Norris, Simon Brown, all those guys that were with King at the same time I was, Julian Jackson, Tyson. I mean, Tyson, thank God he didn't push back. He actually encouraged King to keep putting me on. So, you know, they could have changed my career, actually.
Yeah. Were you conscious of the fact of the way, the style you fought in order to be accepted and to be on those shows and to be accepted by at least the fighters?
I felt like to be accepted, to be noticed, I had to punch from bell to bell and make it a war. I mean, because that's the truth. What real fight fans want to see, they want to see a war. They want to see somebody get knocked out. They want to see somebody get hit hard. They want to, they want to see you come back. That's what I would always get mad. I'm like, damn, they cheer when I hit the person, but then they cheer when I get hit too. So whose side are they on? But they just wanted to see a real fight. And that's what I tried to give them each and every time out.
And Russ here, if the fight with, you talked about the undercard with Mike Tyson is one of the big kind of moments in the documentary that was unbelievable, that footage and the fans turning around and stuff. And I thought, looking at that documentary, for people who haven't necessarily been boxing fans and why it's appealing to anyone, this story, at what point were you approached to do this type of documentary? Because what I thought was unbelievable is how forthright you were. A lot of times, if you're going to do these type of sports documentaries, you have to be completely honest, even if it's going to be parts of your life that you may not want to disclose, and it's very personal, very private, but you're completely upfront about everything. When did that decision come about that you wanted to talk about your story in a way that was going to expose the good side of it, but also all the negatives that have happened and kind of what you've been able to overcome?
That decision was made when I woke up in the hospital after being shot and stabbed. I said, God left me here for a reason. And that reason was to share my story and to help other people, whether it be through sexuality, domestic violence, or just the underdog story. I feel like I'm like the ultimate underdog, you know. I got to share my story, and hopefully I can help somebody make a difference in their life, and they don't have to go so far down that rabbit hole that they can't come back, as I did. So that decision was made a long time ago. With the Wayans brothers called me a couple years ago and said, hey, you know, let's do this Netflix documentary. I'm from a small town in Southern West Virginia. I've been through so much crap in boxing, so many promises, so much this, so much that. I almost laughed. I'm like, sure, you know, yeah, I'd love to do a documentary with Netflix. Never thinking I would get a call back. But of course, we got the call back, and then did a lot of filming, got to meet Gogarty again, hang out a little bit with Jimmy Maloney, who I sparred with for so many years. It was a lot of fun filming, but when it got time for it to be released, I got a little nervous.
And how did you feel after seeing it?
I think it was very fair. I mean, I think everybody was, I think Laura Bronson did a great job putting all the puzzle pieces together. I just think Jim Martin is still the same lying guy that he was, you know, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, for whatever reason, I guess me trying to find a positive, I thought maybe he would take credit, not take credit, but like he would say, I did this, I shot her, I stabbed her, I tried to kill her. I thought he would own up to it, but he didn't. And that was, I mean, to see the same arrogant ass that he was a little, is hurtful, but it rattles my cage a little.
I don't blame you. I felt the same way. And I thought the only thing he wanted to take credit for was that he made you, you know, he made you the fighter. And you know,
no, I made him.
Yeah.
No one would know his name if it wasn't for me.
Yeah, even though he self-considered himself one of the top 5 trainers in the world. And I'm thinking to myself, yo, I've been in this game 42 years. You know, I know everybody. You don't have anybody else on your resume.
And that was the whole thing. Like throughout my career and throughout, you know, the whole marriage with him, he would tell me I could do this with anybody. And I would say to him, look, if you can do it with anybody, then do it with somebody else. Because I'm making pretty good money. If you can do it with more people, let's do it with more people. But no, he couldn't, because one thing is he was so controlling. I mean, I couldn't keep good amateurs in my gym because they just couldn't, they couldn't be controlled by him. I mean, it was controlling to, to extremes. You know, you can, as a coach, you have to set limitations and parameters and, you know, this is what we have to do. But to tell you when you can eat and when, you know, you can drink and sleep and all that's bullshit. And that's what he did.
So as you look back on this now, when you look back, at what point did you, now you see it, but at what point did you go from him just being a coach to your husband? So like, I mean, it was, you know, for you to see this now, what was it that you didn't see then?
I was like 22 years old. I was a baby, and I was just trying to make everybody happy. And I felt like this, I could make everybody happy. You know what? I could be married to a man, but I could, in my mind, I knew I was married boxing. So I'm making the world happy and my family happy by marrying a man, but I'm making me happy by marrying boxing. So, you know, as time went on, I knew I had truly made a deal with the devil, but I was in too deep. I couldn't get out.
Wow.
But the boxing aspect, I think what's really also awesome is some of the footage. And I don't want to spoil too much of the documentary for people who haven't seen it. And there's a lot of riveting stuff. Part of the fighting scenes, though, they kind of showed at one point you were saying you're trying to do a comeback, without Jim in your corner and try to do it with other people as well. Do you like? I also looked at your record, and some of the names you fought includes a Holly Holm that wasn't in part of the documentary, but fought later on in your career, who ends up being a big star in the UFC after defeating Ronda Rousey. Like, how was that experience coming? Like, do you think in your career after having that initial time off, but still wanting to have that extra win, do you have any regrets about any of that? Or are you happy that the career went as long as it did?
I truly wish. I mean, part of me wishes that when the Riker fight didn't happen, I would have retired, because the truth is my career was over at that moment when I had trained so hard and I was so mentally and physically ready to fight Lucia. And when she pulled out, what was left? What was left? What was I going to do from there? I went and fought Holly Holmes in her hometown. I mean, I didn't even care. I remember sitting on the stool in between like the 5th and 6th round and saying to myself, why am I here? I'm basically, in BFE, Albuquerque, New Mexico, making a very 10% of what I was supposed to be making, or a little bit more than that. But I was making like 60 grand. And I mean, come on, here I am. Just I should have left the game when Riker pulled out.
I know there's nothing to compare to what you suffered personally, but from a trainer's perspective, who I've coached amateurs, right through to the pro ranks, it's very important to me when a trainer cares for his fighter and the corner cares for their fighter and takes care of them and protects them sometimes from themselves and courage. Watching what was allowed to happen with the Layla Ali fight was criminal. First of all, that an athletic commission will allow you to weigh in dressed just so you could make weight, like they're supposed to be there to protect you. Taking that kind of fight, giving up that kind of weight and size advantage is almost unheard of. And then for your corner not to pull you out. Let's say you said, okay, you know what? We're going to take this fight. I'm bigger. I don't have a chance. Pull me out. Let's collect the payday. That's boxing. It happens, right? You take those kind. But to allow you to take that kind of a beating, like they were pissed at you, like that's a problem.
Yeah, no, it's, you know how it goes for fighters. When we win, we win. When you lose, you lose.
Yeah.
And so I lost against Layla Ali. We won against all those people that we beat, or that I beat.
Yeah.
but I quit on Layla Ali. But the thing is, he could have saved me. And then I could have just lived with that myself. He could have easily stepped up and said, that's enough, but he wasn't going to do that. That would put him into the negative, because I could have easily said, well, he's my husband. He stopped the fight. He shouldn't have. And that would have been, that would have been good for me. Like I could have saved a little face, but the truth is I quit. I took all responsibility. I take all responsibility today. I wanted the fight, and I think if we fought 10 times, I probably could sneak out one somewhere, but she's a big girl. She's strong. Yeah. And it was good for women's boxing. I thought it was good hype for women's boxing. It brought a lot of attention. We did 100,000 pay-per-view buys. We sold out the arena. It's boxing. This is my wife.
Never should have fought Ali.
Well, yeah.
I had a discussion in the front yard of their house about how that fight should have never taken place. That was my first clue that there was a chink in Jim Martin's armor, because he turned on his heels and left. I'm like, there's weight classes for a reason, Jim. And he's like, well, Chrissy's a better fighter. And I said, yeah, she's older and she's smaller. And Christy Martin doesn't need Layla Ali's name, but Layla Ali needs Christy Martin's name. And 30 pounds, Jim, is a lot of weight.
That's the part that bothered me a lot in that. And I remember watching Miguel Cotto's father let him take that beating against Margarito, and sending him out. And that hurt me so much, because I've been in this situation. Like I had Otis Grant fight Roy Jones, and after Otis got knocked down for the third time in the fight, not 3 times in a row, but third time. He wasn't really hurt, but I said, okay, that's it. You know,
Right.
we're not going to win from here. That's it. I'm there to protect
A fighter fights, but your corners is your fail safe. That's you know, one, and it's not just, you know, everyone knows that there's a sacred bond between a corner and a fighter, and your corner, a fighter's mentality is as fragile as their brain. So you're not just protecting the fighter from getting hurt, you're protecting the fighter from themselves and from walking around for the rest of their life saying, I quit, I quit, I quit.
Right.
Because you don't quit if you're beat. And unfortunately in that situation, Christy was beat by a younger, stronger,
bigger,
30-pound bigger fighter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Very cool to see Lisa as well, who has a big role in the documentary and a bit of a twist that for those who haven't seen it, it's pretty cool. Russ, I know there was also another scene like in the documentary that really got you upset for one of the stoppages that you disagreed with, right?
Yeah, that you know, and again,
Oh my God.
I'm talking to you again from a boxing perspective, not personal, because I know nothing that happens in the ring can compare to the horror that you went through as a woman and in your life and what you were subjected to. So I'm not making the comparison, but we're talking boxing, right? The way fight guys do when you talk stuff.
Yep.
What they did to you in California was just an absolute disgrace and no reason for it. You know, it's how Ali fought with a broken jaw. Guys have fought and broken their hands. You didn't stop Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you didn't stop that. And because you went out, you winced when you hurt your hand. They determined that was a reason to stop the fight and protect you. What?
And as you can see me, I'm jumping up and down. Just, I mean, it's 50 seconds. If oh my God, if you could just let me go 10 or 15 seconds, and you know what? If she jumps on me and she's beating the shit out of me, stop it. But give me at least 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever. I only had 50 left to go. But give me a little bit of time to try to you know, make myself get through this fight and win this 50th win. Me Poppy there.
Well, we brought you a special guest. We brought you a special guest so he could motherfuck it. So he
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Miguel Diaz joins us, also was part of the documentary as well.
¿Qué pasó, Miguel?
How you doing? Who you are in the line? Who's in the line with you?
Me, Miguel.
Oh, Christy
Christy.
Martin. Oh my God. Oh my God.
I love you, Miguel. I love you, me Poppy.
She made me come over here just so I could.
Hey, now you are. Now we are all together over here. Now we are all together. I saw you. I
love Miguel.
When
Miguel,
if you love
we are
me,
family.
you know
We are
you
truly
know what
family.
it is in my family. You love me. You know what it is in my family, my wife, my daughter, Miguel Jr. How are you doing?
Everything is good, Miguel. Everything is good. How are you? How's the hip doing?
Well, I only did it because of Christy Martin. The heat is getting better, but still I don't work. You know, I still on pain. But I think I'm gonna be good for next week. I think so. I have a little thing over here. Say this meeting is being recorded. But continuing to be in the meeting, you are considering to be
Let's ask Miguel about the stoppage.
What is it?
Did Miguel like that stoppage?
Okay, it's okay. Christy, I have to tell you,
What is it?
when I called Miguel and I told him I wanted to surprise you, you have no idea how happy this guy was when I told him this. He told me that now I could be his best friend for doing this.
Oh my. No,
Yep.
look,
Yep.
I love
Yep.
Miguel and his whole
Yep.
family, Mimi, Patricia, Miguelito, everybody. And they told me a few years ago, I came to Father's Day and they said no other fighter has ever been to Father's Day. No other fighter's ever even been to their house. So to get to be accepted by Miguel and his family, It definitely, it makes me feel special, but it lets me know I am special.
Well, when I
Yeah,
was
you better
watching-
believe that.
when I was
Yeah.
watching the documentary and I saw Miguel involved, and Miguel and I go back a long time, and we've always had great relation. We talk boxing, and he's a real boxing
Because we
guy.
know boxing, we know boxing.
Yeah,
We
and
talk the same language.
when I saw him there, I said I want to reach out, and when he agreed to do this, we made arrangements to go and get him and take him to our office, because he has a flip phone, and flip phones don't quite work, you know. So
That's what I was noticing. Like Miguel is not at home, so it's like whatever time it was, at 6:30 in Vegas. So
yeah,
Mimi let him out. Patricia must be with you.
no, my brother picked him up.
Okay, all
Yeah.
Russ, I
right.
want to ask Miguel about that stoppage right before we.
Talk to Miguel about the stoppage.
That's what I wanted to have him on for, you know, because Miguel's been in a ton of corners. He's had guys cut, hurt, whatever. He's been with great fighters. Miguel, have you ever seen something as stupid as what happened in that 50th fight?
No, really. No, that's completely a mistake by the doctor and the referee, who they want to be more Baptist than the Pope. They're going to be more religious than the Pope. I don't know if you can hear me. But
Yeah.
Christy, you hear me?
I hear
pretty
you.
good?
I
Okay.
hear you.
And I'm very happy that I was not part of your family in the beginning, and my appearance and the Netflix thing, that is what I really for part of your team at the last time, since the fight when you get bleeding, and the Catman that you have, he can make it, and then you guys decide to go with me, and with that, after the things that happened 6 months later, and this guy deprived you to win the fight, to me was a completely no boxing guy at all. And the way I express myself, maybe people don't like. I don't know how come they don't took my license away. I guess because I got a good relation with a lot of other people over there. But my mouth was going, because that's a matter of fact, we were talking with you yesterday, and we were talking about the one fight with a left hand broke, or right hand broke for 15 rounds. You
Rocky
remember the name
Mattioli.
yesterday?
Rocky Mattioli.
Rocky Mattioli, an Italian guy, and he won the championship of the world from the first round broken hand. And you were missing what, 30 seconds? And he didn't realize that you can follow up the 30-second jabbing alone and win your fight. It was just 6 months after your problems. Those guys don't know what they're doing. And that's what it is. They don't know what they do. They don't know what boxing is all about. Unfortunately,
what,
that's
Miguel?
the way. And
In my 42 years, I've never seen a doctor come to a ring to examine a hand through the glove and make a determination to stop a fight. I've never seen
Thank
a
you.
doctor look at that. Oh, he
Thank
hurt his
you.
hand. It's
Thank
okay, doc. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. I've never seen.
like I say, they want to be more peace than the Pope, you know? And they think when they do those things, they think that they make themselves a better doctor, and that to be a no better fight doctor. A fight doctor, not just a doctor, a fight doctor.
Yeah.
They don't know the sport at all. They don't know the inside of the sport. They don't know what the fighters are putting in there.
That's
They're
right.
putting the life in the middle, and they're going to stop the fight for the block that he don't even know. It was a big block between you and me. They having she says 7 hours operation. I didn't even realize there was 7 hour operation until she told me. But he didn't have no idea, and the referee did the same thing. The referee just go along with the doctor, and he didn't. He was not a bad referee through his career. He was a good referee.
Mhm.
but he had to do what the doctor told
Yeah,
him,
of course he did.
and that's
Of
what.
course. Of course. he did.
I like what Christy say. Still, that is my 50 win,
Yeah.
and the Netflix. And invite every single person who likes boxing to watch that Netflix, besides to listen to this program, to this little interview. She
Thank you so
deserves
much.
what a lot of people watch that and know who Christy Martin was. She was the number one. She put women boxing on boxing, on
Correct.
TV
On the map.
and whatever it is. She's the one who put them on.
Thank you.
so,
Miguel.
thank you so much,
that's
Miguel.
well
Thank you,
said.
Christy. You want to say anything to Miguel before we let him go and finish up with you here for a few minutes?
Love you, guys. I love you, Miguel. You take care
I
of
love you
yourself.
too, and I
And
love.
I will see you soon.
Who is that lady? Who is that lady next to you?
See, that's my
Who is
wife.
she?
Here she comes.
Who?
That's
Who?
my wife. She
Huh?
helped
Who?
my wife. So
Don't
we
act like-
we,
don't act
we
like
went
you
and
don't
know.
visited Miguel like a week ago, 2 weeks
You better
ago.
be careful.
Miguel.
You better be careful with that guy. You
Miguel.
better be careful with
¿Te
that girl.
gusta?
Martin Promotions.
Cabrón.
Or-
You
or
know,
esta?
you know how it was me in Argentina when I used to wear the pink shirt? Every fight, like,
You look
man,
good at pink.
with a
Which one do
pink
you want,
shirt.
Miguel? The punch?
They call me from Argentina. Everybody called me from Argentina. I still have that shirt, baby.
That's right. That's right.
You want,
It's
you
in
want
my-
this
it's
one,
in my-
Miguel?
We're gonna
It's
send
in
him
my
that one.
collection.
This one.
We're gonna send him
That's
that
in
one.
my collection.
We're gonna
Awesome.
send him
Thank you
that
so
one.
much, Miguel.
All
Thanks so much
right.
for doing this.
Good. I
How
don't
about,
have
how
that
about you
one.
guys? You want a punch or you want a ring?
I want it in person. I
Bring
want it
us
in
up there.
when I'm in where are you located now?
We're in
Christy?
Austin, Texas.
You're in Austin. All right. Well, listen, my travels I'm going to London for the Anthony Joshua fight in September, but I get to off into Vegas and there's fights in Texas. So
We're gonna cross paths. Just tell me when we're about to cross paths and we'll bring you some shirts.
absolutely. Now you wanted to talk, you have an event coming up this weekend, don't you?
We do. We have Mayhem in Myrtle 3 Saturday night. And the headline, now how crazy is this? The headline of the fight is Alonzo Butler versus Brandon Spencer. Alonzo Butler is promoted by Don King.
Wow.
So
I
it's
didn't even know
like,
Don was still
you know,
promoting fighters.
Yeah, yes. Come on. He's never gonna stop. But yeah, I mean, so how the tides have turned, right? So King's putting a fighter on my show and we're working together. I did a show with him in January. So it's exciting to be working with him again. But yeah, the card is loaded. I have a kid, Anthony Sevilla, who is my kid from West Virginia, fighting fireman, can fight. This kid can fight. He's gonna be knocking on a door for a title. He might not ever win a title, but he's gonna knock on the door. Benny Aguilar, I think he's that Arturo Gatti fan-friendly style that's just gonna make a fight when there doesn't even need to be a fight. He's gonna make a fight. Then we have Victorino Gonzalez, who is a boxer puncher kind of kid that we're gonna see. He's a tough kid. We'll see how far he can make it. But the card is loaded and it's gonna be live streamed on BPE. And we're excited. You can go to my Facebook page and all that and find out the link to get the fight. But it's going to be free live stream starting Saturday at 6:00.
Now, how often and how long have you been doing the promotions? How regular is this? I know with the pandemic that was a problem, but
I started in 2015, and then I've been pretty consistent since then. I think we're at fight number maybe 23, 24, somewhere around there. Even through the pandemic, we tried to be strong and still be out there. I worked with Gardner Payne and did some shows. But my wife, Lisa, is the support and the one that keeps telling me I can get it done. But even when I don't always think I can get it done, she's the one that tells me we're going to be fine.
I told you with the promoting part of boxing was the toughest part. It's oh man.
Trust and believe. I'd rather be the fighter any day of the week. And had I not had a stroke, trust me, I would be fighting right now today.
So Christy, in ending, the love for the sport has never wavered. You still love it and as passionate about it now as when you first entered that strongman competition.
I think so. I mean, there was a minute where I really do wish I would have retired after the fight with Liker didn't happen. But I mean, to me right now, I kind of have that same, I wish I could get back in there feeling as I did early on.
Awesome. Well, Christy, Salters, and Martin, thank you so much for doing this. Again, for people who want to watch it on Netflix who haven't seen it yet, it's The Deal with the Devil, the untold story of Christy Martin. And again, if you're a boxing fan, you'll love it. If you're not a boxing fan, I think it's thoroughly interesting and fascinating regardless. So it's one of the reasons why it's trending now. And Russ, I don't know if you want to say a final goodbye to Christy here, but it was definitely an honor to be able to speak with you.
Absolutely. And Christy, I love you. I've learned so much about you. I'm glad, when we did that podcast about a year ago with Maureen, things happen for a reason. And now I feel like we've developed a friendship, and I'm so honored that you accepted to do this. And if there's anything we can ever help you with, I'd love to. And I didn't know all the things you went through, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know the trials and tribulations you went through. You're an inspiration and a source of strength, and will be to a lot of people. And you gave a lot of people hope. And I'm proud to know you and call you a friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And you know what? I said from the beginning, as I told you, God left me here for a reason. If that reason is to help somebody else get a little strength and to cross over a bridge that they didn't think they could, then I've done my job. So thank you guys for helping me do my job.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Good luck. Good luck Saturday night.
And thank you so much for bringing me Poppy.
Yeah. See that?
Perfect. Awesome. Russ, stick around here. Christy,
I
thank you
will.
so much. Have a good evening. And that was pretty cool, I have to admit. And Russ, we have a few different things to discuss here, but that was pretty cool.
Nice.
100%. 100%.
That was almost like, that was touching. Look how happy Miguel was, and to surprise her like that. I thought that was really nice. What a story. Huh? Think about that. I don't know that there are men who have gone through what she went through.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but definitely it's worth a watch. And she was talking about the past, boxing, and whether it's female fighters especially, and they have to recognize and looking up at some of these fighters and the knowledge, how important. We talk about this all the time, whether it's with Scully, Bruce Trampler was on the show, and Amanda Serrano, who is one of the best fighters right now, currently female fighters in the world. She's fighting on the co-main event of a pay-per-view on Showtime in a big card this upcoming Sunday night. And she gets a chance, of course, to add to her knockout streak. And now she's getting more exposure. We have the Katie Taylors of this world. We're seeing more and more, Clarissa Shields. We see female fighters get more and more spotlight. And Christy Martin, I'm hoping with this documentary will also kind of remember people that, these opportunities happen, but people paved the way, because it was looked more at, much differently back then as it is now in the world of boxing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the only thing that's going to bring hope to women's boxing being accepted is the quality of fighter that enters the ring. They want to be treated like men. They want to fight. I've heard some of the ones, they want to fight 3-minute rounds. They want to have the same rules. They want to have the same gloves. It used to be that you had to fight in 10-ounce gloves. Now they're allowed to fight in what their weight class is. And I think when that caliber goes up and you have a division that's full of the Katie Taylors, and 1 to 10 is as good as the Savannah Marshalls, and all these aspiring people coming out of the Olympics are making their way through the pro ranks, that's going to make the sport accepted. When Christy was around, the pickings were slim, and the few that were there, they had to make it in a man's world, and they had to fight like men, train like men. And when she talked about people like Lucia Riker and Layla Ali, though they were legit. They were real fighters. They weren't just there for the publicity stunt. They were there as real fighters, and they fought that way. So it's come a long way.
Amanda Serrano has a big fight coming up. If you would like to place a wager on bet99.com, you can, Mr. Anber. As you know, you like to do the famous quote. Are you ready for this? Are you ready?
Yeah. And if you enter the code boxing99, right? Boxing 99.
Right.
Just correct, because if I say it and I'm wrong, boxing 99, they will match your wager up to $600 if you win. So basically, you can double your bet. They'll double your winnings if you use the boxing 99 code.
Yeah, it's bet99.com. They're Canada's newest online sports book and casino. Be sure to check out their player props, their bet builders, their risk-free live bet bonuses. And the code boxing99 is the sports welcome offer, which is a deposit match of 100% up to $600. Amanda Serrano is fighting Mercado, who's moving up from 122 to 126. So that's the co-main event. You have Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother, opening that pay-per-view. Ivan Barachang is fighting on the undercard as well. There's some very good boxing fight, but the main event, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but it's Jake Paul fighting Tyron Woodley, who's a former champion in the UFC at the welterweight division. Jake Paul is a bigger guy. Woodley's making his boxing debut. There was press conferences, shenanigans today. It's going to be a big event on Showtime. I think the quality of the card deserves it. Personally, the main event I could do without, but it's becoming more and more of a thing that people think Jake Paul is taking this seriously. He has more talent than Logan Paul, who did the exhibition against Floyd Mayweather. Russ, if Jake Paul defeats a guy like Woodley, who has a boxing, not necessarily boxing pedigree, but a striking pedigree compared to Ben Askren, the last guy Jake Paul knocked out, would you be impressed? Would you consider Jake Paul a possible serious candidate? Are you interested at all in like seeing the development? Because Jake Paul says he's out to prove the doubters wrong. He has a real team. He sparred real fighters in Puerto Rico. Woodley is being trained by Pedro Diaz, that we both know very well. So it would be, a big fight for Jake Paul to win. He's actually a favorite right now. Do you have any interest in seeing the continuation of Jake Paul's career?
As long as Jake Paul fights the way any debuting professional will fight, we always expect a guy making his pro debut to fight somebody not so good, and they get the win. And, they bring in a guy that, you don't say you fix the fight, but the guy has no chance of winning. Fine. But as long as he follows his path of building his career the traditional way of building a fighter's career, 4 rounds, 6 rounds, and steps up, not just stays there fighting not good guys and mismatches all the time, because eventually I think even that's going to wear thin, even within the crowd that he's drawing his audience from. Eventually there's going to have to be something that has a name and raises interest. So as long as he does that, go ahead, man. You've got my blessing. If you can do that, doesn't matter what's said outside the ring. People can hate all they want to. If you go in there and do an honest job and you beat an honest guy and you beat real guys and you're moving up, I got no issues.
Perfect. Well said. Well, I'm interested to see. My final point for this evening. Last week, you told people how much Yordenis Ugas was a legitimate opponent for Manny Pacquiao, and not because he's not as known, he's not as popular, and not take him lightly. You said to people who were on Bet99, he was all close to a 4-1 underdog. He was definitely worth maybe looking at. He wins the fight. Pacquiao, blames the cramping, but he's 42 years of age. He's training like a madman, and maybe he can train at 42 and the same way he trained at 28 and expect the same results. You may have to narrow down kind of the training regimen, but he's had a career that started at the age of 15 years old. I think it's close to 30-year professional career, champion in 8 weight classes. He's thinking maybe of a rematch against Ugas. Ugas was very honorable, saying he'll honor the rematch if Pacquiao chooses to do so. But I would like to see Pacquiao retire at this stage. There's no point of risking continuing to possibly take damage with the career he's had. What are your final thoughts on if Pacquiao should return, or if Pacquiao was the last we've seen of him, how he should be remembered?
Well, I'm glad I'm glad you remembered that. And I remember when we spoke about it, in my gut, I felt this just doesn't seem right. Like this style is all wrong for Manny Pacquiao. This style would have been problematic for a younger Pacquiao. Would he have won? Could he have won? Yeah, maybe he could have won, and the age had a different, but this style was always going to be problematic for a Manny Pacquiao. Ugas, I watched him as an amateur, good fighter, difficult to hit, tricky, understands the game, had size, a legitimate welterweight, as opposed to Pacquiao, who's now at a bigger weight because of age, much the same way that Duran was a big, was a middleweight, But I mean, I remember specifically when Andy Ruiz came in as a late substitute to fight Joshua.
That's right.
And I remember being in the dressing room with the Smith team, with Callum Smith, who fought on the undercard. And I said, this guy is better than the original opponent. Now, I'm not saying Ugas is better than Errol Spence, but it certainly wasn't a massive step down, taking a late substitute on 11 days, where they could have given a pass to Manny and got him someone that wasn't going to be stylistic problem, somebody that Pacquiao was going to be able to hit. Pacquiao needs to be able to hit. If he misses you, that's not good. And I thought on 11 days notice, that kind of a matchup, just in my gut, it sat wrong. First thing I did after the fight, I called Roy Jones, and Roy told me he felt the exact same way about it, that was just, they certainly didn't do Pacquiao any favors. And you would think, now I don't know about what the business that goes on in there, and I understand that Pacquiao says he wants to fight the best, he wants to fight good guys, and you're fighting Errol Spence, yes, but even making that match for Pacquiao after all he's contributed to boxing, what thank you are you giving him by giving him a dangerous, solid, young, hungry fighter like Errol Spence?
Well,
you're not doing him any favors. You're supposed to be thanking this guy for what he's given you for the last 4 decades of boxing, to thank him for his services. And we know that he brings in people, even if he was fighting the janitor, he's still going to sell tickets. Why are you doing this? This really, to me, looked like an opportunity of just giving the payday to Errol Spence, because that would be the biggest payday outside of Crawford, maybe, that you could give to Errol Spence. So you're doing Spence the favor, and that's the thank you we give to somebody like Pacquiao, who's given us 4 decades of thrills and chills and excitement and never cheated a fan 1 penny out of their ticket price. I didn't think that was nice.
I understand where you're coming from, his coming out party, but I think when you look at Pacquiao here, Russ, is that he took a fight against a top 5 guy on 11 days notice, and throughout his career, he never wavered from fighting the best ever. And all the shit talkers right now in box go on Twitter, make all these big, I think that will be part of his legacy, and maybe why some will consider him better than Mayweather on the ultimate pound for pound discussion, but of course it's subjective, despite the fact Pacquiao lost to Mayweather, but he did so much of fighting the better opposition all the time, never complained about it. And I think that's, a tribute to him and being one of the greatest of all time.
And didn't just fight them once, fought them 2, 3, 4 times each. Like he fought them again and again in all the weight classes. And that's why I felt like, exactly like what Christy said, this is how we thank you. This is how we say thank you to everything you've done. You're 42 years old. And as a thank you and going away present for your retirement, we're putting you in there with Errol Spence, who ended up being Ugas. You didn't do the guy any favors. Don't you think he's earned a pass? Don't you think he's earned a favor? Don't you think the public could have had a chance to say goodbye to him appropriately?
But that's not what his intention. And Freddie Roach, if you listen to him before going into the bout, is that he can win. And maybe he fights Crawford one last time. If he's going to compete, he wants to compete against the best. I don't think this was in his mind a farewell tour. He believes he would have won the fight if he didn't cramp up the way he did in the second round. And of course, movement is a big part of his career. But when the legs start to go, it's usually a sign you got to start thinking about hanging him up.
I'd hate to see him go out on a loss. Wasn't a knockout loss. I hate to see him go out on a loss. But, there could be a time when you call it a career after a win, much the same way, Ali tried to say goodbye after regaining the title from Spinks, and said goodbye. And then they forced him back to fight Larry Holmes a few years later. But, that's what you should be going out on. The farewell tour, the last fight, and say thank you to the fans. And the fans get a chance to say thank you to you.
Well, they might eventually down the road with these exhibitions that are extremely popular. De La Hoya is doing one in September. You may see that. Roy Jones that you spoke to, of course, had the one with Mike Tyson. So Pacquiao may get a chance to do something like that. If he does decide to come back and fight Ugas in a rematch, we'll see. He has aspirations to be the president of the Philippines and may announce his candidacy at some point in the fall. So great career to Manny Pacquiao. Enjoyed the talk again this evening, Mr. Anber. It was a lot of fun and always good to talk about some of the past. I think it's important for us. Part of what we try to do in the substance over style mantra, if you will, is to make sure we bring historical perspective and not let the young people forget that there was great fighters before them.
Yeah, and I think one thing we have to do, we're going to address this, but we'll do it for a later show. Obviously, we can't do it now, but one of the guys who follows us, Frank, and sends us messages on Twitter, has asked us about our 10 favorite fighters, if you will, of all time, of who we enjoyed watching. So that's something I think, and that's
Definitely.
a glimpse into the past of the greatness that set the stage for what we live today.
We'll try and do a history class because I know you'll have some names that date, more than just 5 years ago or 5 minutes ago, like some of the new generation would like to believe.
Right.
But we'll save that for another show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Try to tell your friends if you like, subscribe, like us on YouTube. And we enjoy doing this. Of course, we'll talk next week. Enjoy the fights. Mr. Anber, bonne soirée.
Thank you, Matt.